Hey everybody, welcome back to the boat shop. Today in this video you'll get two videos in one. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about all of the final settings and final. Nothing's ever final, right? Okay, you're constantly changing your boat, as you should be. If you're not learning anything. And we're going to do some learning today. We've run the last race of the year, and so we're going to talk about where I wound up with all of the various adjustments on the Eliminator, which is awesome and is only going to get more awesomer. But I think I can give you some settings that'll help you get to awesome, and then together we will get to awesomer-ish as time goes on. All right, let's get into it. Oh, that's the first part. The second part is, while we're doing that with the Eliminator, we will talk about some setup theory that you can use on any boat. If you're not running the Eliminator and you're building something new and you just have no idea of all your baselines, right? Where do you set all this stuff? We're going to talk about that today. Here we go. Let's get into it. As you know, the Eliminator wound up at just over 9 pounds. When I built it, my target was 11.5. I don't know what happened. But it wound up tail heavy. Let's demonstrate. Now you can use this theory on, not theory, yeah, it's theory, but this technique also on any boat you're building. Let's go. Because I need to, there was something I wanted, oh yeah. I'm not going to bother installing it, but we'll get it in its neighborhood. We'll talk about this in a minute. Let's talk about this now. You got to wait for the weight. See what I did there? That's just as crafty as I get these days. Okay, we had a radio box up here, you'll recall. Here are the handy screws that held it in. And it landed over here when I removed it. And before I threw it away, I wanted to show you. There's a bug. Yeah, I live by the river. It is that season. Right now it's a stink bug season. They're all over the place in here. So these things that I gave you a really convenient link on one of my videos to order it from Amazon. I'm sorry if you did. They are not compatible with nitro. If you're on an electric boat, you got it made. But the nitro, as you can see, was kind of eating it. And it basically disintegrated, and anywhere there was tension, like where the screws were, the plastic gave way there, and yeah, filled up with water. Didn't matter. I used waterproof servos, and it worked fine-ish. But this is now trash. Don't use it. Sorry. I reverted back to a thing that I've done before. Let's go get them. Nano round small. I don't know what that means. This comes from CH Ina Incorporated. So I just buy these things in a little box of a bunch of them. It's like a little Tupperware thing, but I just couldn't find an actual Tupperware. Oh, I actually cut this one. That was the size I wanted. So I found these on Amazon. I think they're 2 ounce. You know what? If I can find the link in the description of this video, I will put a link to these where you can get them if you want to use them. So I moved it from here to here. I eliminated the stand-up antenna. First time I've ever done that. I've told you, I'm a coward. I like to have my antenna exposed. On a carbon boat, you have to, because the carbon will block the signal. I use all wood. I don't know if you can see the way I've routed that now. All I did, yeah, there's a little piece of tubing right here. Actually, it's a former piece of antenna tubing. And where the wire comes out of this little box, I just looped it through there and let it hang. By golly, it works just great. Simple enough. Top pops off. Receiver sits in there. X-Acto knife. Cut a slot just down far enough, just below the lid, something like this, if you can see that. Oh, that one I just cut through. Here I actually cut a slot so that when you snap it on, those guys wind up right here. I didn't silicone them, no nothing. it's just a pretty nice fit. Okay, so the wires are kind of snug going through there. And it's not metal, you know, nothing's going to short. I'll pull it apart and take a look at it, you know, from time to time. But so I ran it like that. Worked fantastic. Stayed dry. Went upside down once. Yeah, you know, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Stayed dry. You know, you can pop this off between rounds while you're doing other things if you want. Take a look. Let it air out a little bit if there's a little bit of moisture. Velcro. It's just nothing but some Velcro underneath. Okay, clean the surface really good with some alcohol, whatever. Same thing on the bottom of this. Velcro. Boom. You're in. Little snug. Snug is fine. You got 10 thousandths, you got a mile, right? Worked great. Now, we're going to talk about the weight of the boat at just over 9 pounds. That's not good. Not good. The boat wanted to go upside down. It's faster than heck. It turns out you're on a 9-pound boat that's faster than heck. It's going to go upside down if it has the problem this boat has that I'm going to show you right now, that I absolutely did not think was going to happen, but it did. First of all, that it came in at 9 pounds. Second of it all, that it came in tail heavy. I mean, there's nothing here. I don't get it, except there is a bunch of structure here, I suppose. And the bull nose is pretty far back, you know, where most boats, it's up in this neighborhood, so you can get the motor a lot further forward. I believe we've talked about it before, but since this is a full setup video, let's talk about where we want the weight to land on this boat. And any boat. I want the balance of the boat. We'll use this one as an example since it's here and you can see the fin really, really well. I want the boat to balance in the center of what I'm going to consider to be the high pressure area of the turn fin, which is going to be right about in the ride height area. Slightly forward even, not behind. There's a reason for that. Okay, so I mean, a tether ball swings out beautifully on its rope. Why? Because all the weight of the tether ball is perfectly centered. When this boat's turning in the corner, we're turning on that fin. There's invisible hand holding that fin. Hopefully, if it's not enough fin, it breaks free. You know, let's go. It's holding that fin and spinning it around the corner, right? I want all the weight centered on that. Imagine if you couldn't force a tether ball to be crooked, but okay, let's use an oblong thing like, say, a boat. And you're holding the fin and you're spinning it around the corner as fast as you can with your hand, but the thing is way heavier in the back than it is in the front. That back is going to want to swing out. I don't know if that's making sense. If it's way heavier in the front than it is in the back, and you're trying to spin it around, that front is going to want to swing out. And it's just not going to be happy. If all of the weight balances in the center of this guy, oh, it swings beautifully around that turn, and it's just so happy through the turn. So your balancing act in construction is to get the aerodynamics of the boat to where when all of your weight is positioned, is centered on the high pressure point of that turn fin, or maybe slightly ahead, because I'd rather be slightly ahead and have the boat want to shove out of the turn than slightly to the back and have the rear want to rotate around, okay? So when you have that balance that matches the aerodynamic balance of the boat, and so it flies beautifully with that weight position there, you got yourself a boat. What we wound up with this boat, I'll try to just show you with just my fingers. Now you can grab a piece of wood and lay it underneath here and try to find a precise balancing point. But I just use my fingers. And I'll grab the boat pretty much where I want the balance point to be. I don't know if you can see this in the video, but I want to be right here-ish or slightly forward. So roughly this neighborhood. And only the front comes up. The boat's tail heavy. Let's go back to where we were. I'm going to scoot back a little. Still lifting in the front. I'm well behind where I would like it to be. Almost balanced there. Ah! Okay. I've got my boat kind of balanced, still slightly tail heavy, and I'm back in this neighborhood here. And you know what? I've already added weight because it was worse. Whoo! Tail heavy boat. It's because of this bullnose and all of this extra structure. You can only get the motor so far forward from where the driver is. You're building this thing electric, you got it made. Shove your batteries all the way up here. Get that motor up here. You're going to be fine. That's your target. On this boat and any boat, get it to balance, centered. It'll do a couple things. It'll make it turn beautifully. Right now it's still slightly tail heavy in the turn. It wants to over rotate. Plus it'll fly right. When the boat hops, it'll fly level and sit back down. This one hops and the nose comes up. It can go over. I started tuning the heck out of it and cranking some serious speed out of it after I added the weight, of course, and it was awesome. But I found a point where it was going to go over again. So it's still going to need a little bit more. How much did I add and how did I add it? I will show you. And we're going to talk about a lot of things underneath the boat that'll work on any boat you build. Let's take that off. Let's get this out of the way. Oh, you want a little bit of setup stuff for your eliminator? If you're running the CMB as I am, and if you manage to put a Novarossi pipe on it as I did, I will prove the measurement to you. Anytime I'm measuring pipe length, if you and I talk about this, just know that I don't measure it from the thing that goes in here and it gets the glow plug. Thank you. I don't measure it from the glow plug. First of all, it's not really convenient, and for whatever reason, I just don't. I measure from the back of the head up to the middle, what I would consider to be the middle of the weld. Okay, 10 1/4. That's where I've got it right now, and it really screams. I think it can run shorter because this thing will just accelerate like a beast coming off the line. As you shorten this, you lose a little bit of torque, is why I mentioned that. So if I shorten this a little bit, I may get to a point where it doesn't accelerate super well, but the shorter you run it, the more RPM you get, and that's super fun to hear it screaming like crazy. What were we going to do? We were going to flip it and talk about what's going on underneath. Well, let's kind of zoom in on the rest of this stuff. I don't know if you guys that are building this have seen the pipe setup. I can't remember if I showed you the pipe setup. Yeah, I just showed you. The tank setup plumbed. You can kind of see what I did with the lines there. It's a booger, bending them little things, getting them just right. Take your time, you'll get it. Pressure fitting goes inside the tank, and that goes up to the top of the tank. Supply to the sump tank just goes to the bottom of the tank, somewhere's around the middle of this tank here. Just drop it down to the bottom. Same things happen here. This is now your supply, similar to your pressure. So it goes up to the top, put it back to the back of the tank. The pickup wraps really tightly inside and comes down to this bottom corner. And this thing, it works great. It can suck all the fuel out of it till it's just bone dry. My needle setup. I'm a big fan of these OS in-flight needles. They're hard to come by now. They haven't been made for a whole long time. I've got a few of them. Don't ask me to sell you one, I won't. But they're nice. I wrap a little bit of tubing on it. It helps keep the adjustment from moving. This guy will lay underneath there and brrr, next thing you know, it's turned half a turn. It goes super fast for a little while it's leaning out, and then it dies. Of course, this will be hooked up when I go race. So that's how I leave that. Super easy, super slick. Stays out of the way. All of this just worked beautifully, except for this box that blew up. Okay. So the whole setup, all of I've shown you in here, the drive line, oh my gosh, it's so slick with this solid flex drive, so fast, so smooth. In fact, the boat was so light, and the only thing that you could feel the vibration of the motor in the boat, but nothing else. But the way the motor rotates made this thing want to sit here and spin on the stand, so I actually had to add a little stopper here that holds this thing, because in this boat it's not typical, you know, it doesn't have this whole any of these tapered surfaces on the bottom to kind of keep it centered on your stand, so it just wanted to sit here and rotate off the stand. It was kind of funny, but you'll need to do that. All right, we're going to talk about, we're going to go underneath. Let's look at this thing and let's set this thing up. We were talking about the turn fin a minute ago, so let's keep talking about that, shall we? Oh, here we go. I wanted to show you this. 4 ounces, dude. I had 4 here and 4 here. I have since moved 4 into right here, and there's the plug. Here's the deal. You can do it any way you want. If you haven't put your decks on yet, you still have a chance. If you have, sorry, you gotta do something like this. I got some of this, I think it's 3/4 carbon tube. I just dug it out of my box, you know, stuff for whatever reason. Oh, I think I bought this for bull noses on something I was building. But what I drilled a hole, Dremel tool, made this slide in there real nice, grabbed 4 ounces because I knew I wanted 4. Just cut whatever. You can use this stuff or cut these up or whatever. 4 ounces, slide it in there, glue it in, and I thought, oh, I know what I'll do. And I cut a little wooden plug and stuck it on there. Yeah, all right, kind of scabby. But, you know, at least I didn't pop a ride surface off and stick a bunch of glue in there and a bunch of weights. So I just stuck it in here. Okay, and now if I need to, I'm going to do it again here. And when I shift this weight forward, okay, that's going to actually bring my weight balance forward a little bit, which is nice. If I need to add a little bit more, like I think the thing probably, based upon the way we balanced it just now, I think it's probably going to need another 2, maybe 3, right up here. I know this is all starting to freak you out, but remember this thing weighed just over 9 pounds. And I've added, what? I've added 8 ounces to it. So it's probably just over 10 now. And I don't care if this thing winds up at 11.5, because that was my target, as long as I get the balance right. And oh my gosh, your boat's going to get nothing but faster as you get the balance right, even if you're having to add weight. Okay, so get over it. Just do it. What were we doing? Oh, yeah, let's talk about where this wound up and why I want it that way. Let's start with the alignment. Okay, because I think we actually have a slight problem here. In some other videos I talked about where you want this to be, but let's talk about how we're going to do that. First of all, I have other videos that explain this in great detail, as I think I just mentioned, but I like that one. No, we'll use this one. Not like it makes any difference. I've kind of gotten hooked on these. Every time I go to yard sale or state sale and they're there, I buy them. I don't know why, and I can't stop. Okay, so the alignment of the turn fin, okay? Where is it in relation to the center line of the boat? Do you just build the boat and stick it on and hope for the best? No. Man, this really matters. Let's talk about terminology. What I'm going to talk about is toe in and toe out of the fin right now. There's other things to talk about with it, but this is what we're dealing with right now. By that I mean its alignment relative to the center line of the boat. Is it aligned this way, exaggerating obviously, or straight, or aligned this way? This way I call toe in because the front of the fin is toward the center line of the boat. It's in towards the center line of the boat. This way is towed out because it's towed out toward the outside of the boat. Okay, so that's how we're going to refer to that. How are we going to measure that? Because the fin is angled, as it should be, and we'll talk about that angle in a minute. Because it's angled, if you don't put your straight edge on it, well, you can put your straight edge on it such that right now it looks like the fin is towed in really hard. If I go this way, it looks like it's towed out really hard. Where is correct? Well, correct is the ride height of the boat, which is this point, in relation to the middle point of your prop, right? These things are prop riders. Now, there is a slight variable here that nobody really knows, okay? A 2-blade prop, in my experience, the rear of the boat sits lower in the water with a 2-blade than it does with the 3-blade. Well, why? It's supposed to ride right at the prop center line, right? Yeah, but in the real world, it kind of doesn't. First of all, the water isn't just this perfect glassy smooth surface all the time, so it's hopping and popping anyway. But a 2-blade, it hits once, and then it hits again, and then it hits again. So every time it hits, you can imagine it's lifting the back of the boat just slightly, right? But it's happening so fast you don't see it hopping necessarily. With a 3-blade, it's hitting 3 times every revolution instead of only twice. So you're actually sitting slightly deeper with a 2-blade. So you will probably wind up with a slightly deeper, or you can, and it's okay if you do, a slightly deeper prop shaft strut than you would with a 3-blade. Okay? Let's go to that. Where I would normally run this, boy, this video is going all over the place. Ideally, and when we set it up, and let me find, because you're going to want to know this for my current, again, this will probably change, my current setup on the strut. What I prefer and what I think is correct when I have a ride height is just slightly over, I hope you can see that, just slightly over 3/4 of an inch. Okay? That's the ride height of my boat. I want the center line of my prop to be at that same 3/4 of an inch. I adjusted this at the pond without measuring it. I marked a Sharpie line on it, loosened it up, moved it ever so slightly just because I wanted to see what it would do. And I am currently, what is it? 24, 25, 26. What is that? 11/16? 13/16, slightly anyway, 1/16 deeper than the ride pads. I run a 2-blade prop, so again, that's not that big a deal. Ideally, I would like this to not be quite this deep, and we'll probably adjust that later. But I know right now the boat is pretty dadgum fantastic that you could set yours at 26/32, which is, yes, 13/16, slightly deeper than your ride pads. And that's going to matter when we adjust that turn fin in just a second. I am looking for, yes, angle. Just since we switched over to the strut, let's finish what we're doing. If you follow my videos, you know I'm a big fan of 1 degree. This is probably going to be slightly over that now. When I deepened it, what I did was I deepened it primarily at the rear. So I'm going to figure 1.5. Shouldn't be as far as 2. That would disappoint me. I need you to hold still. Hey, hold your breath for a second, everybody. You know what, give or take a couple of clicks. Good gosh. Ta-da! No, you're doing that on purpose. Okay, give or take a couple clicks doesn't mean a thing. Oh, okay, all right, we wound up at 1.2. And again, that's give or take, you know. I mean, these things are never super duper accurate, but slightly over 1, slightly more than I would like. I believe that once I shift the weight, I'll be able to move this back to 3/4 and 1 degree, which is what I would like. And we may play with some 3-blade props next year, and I'll show you how that worked out. So get somewhere between 1 degree, 1.2, 1.3, maybe, yeah, okay. And you'll be fine. Minimum of 3/4 inch deep, 13/16, which is where I wound up, and I know it'll work terrific. Now, why did we talk about that? Because that's how we're going to set the position of this thing. It's going to touch here, and we're going to run roughly this depth here. It doesn't make a huge difference, but get close. Let's grab, I know. Oh, that's going to be good. Yeah, that's not enough. But you'll get the idea. You'll want to grab something just slightly deeper and try get roughly to the center line, or again slightly above, because this thing is going to ride a little deeper on it, especially if you're running a 2-blade. But this is going to be really, really close, and it's not going to affect our position. Let's clamp it so that we can talk about this uninterrupted. Gosh, I apologize for this video being a mess. This is stuff you need to know. Might need to be further out. Let's see how we did. I'm just going to lay it on here and here and pull it up against the back of our turn fin. just like that. Now we could glance at it and say, looks pretty doggone straight, but let's measure it. I'm not going to be surprised if we find this off a little bit because I felt that it didn't track as perfectly as I wanted it to. Yeah, we'll use this side. This is 1/16 of an inch. Oh, by the way, this boat's super nice to measure it because I have this sharp line here. The floor of this thing is just a perfect rectangle, so this is the center line, the tracking direction of the boat is this line right here. On your boat, you know, measure it out, mark the center, do whatever you got to do. Give yourself a reference that you can measure to. I'm just going to touch it and try not to let it move. Okay, can you see that? It is 2 and 15/16. Okay. Gonna grab a hold of this so I can tap it. Oh, look at that. A little over 3. What's that mean? It's wider here than it is here. So it is towed in slightly, right? No bueno. See, there's the slight misbehavior that I felt that I had. Super drivable, no problem. You know what I mean? Because that's like a 1/16 of an inch, so that's not a big deal. But absolutely don't want this guy towed in. How come? Okay, so let's think about it. The boat's on the water and we're traveling forward and we're traveling hard, right? And we're going to turn here in a minute. But if I've got this guy towed in and I'm going forward, where's the water pressure? On the outside. Right. Whoever said that. Yeah, give yourself a snack or something. Give yourself a treat. Good boy, good boy. Okay, so this thing's towed in, right? We got water pressure here on the outside. And now I go to set into the turn and I immediately transfer the water pressure from the outside to the inside. What's it going to do? It's going to get mad. It's going to misbehave. I want to preload the inside so that it isn't shocked when I go into the turn. Okay, I hope that makes some sense. Plus, what I want is I want the boat to want to turn at all times. If you're on the straightaway and you have to have a couple clicks to the left on your steering trim, that's good. That's fine. The boat's in the air and it's riding only on the fin and the rudder anyway, so it doesn't care if your fin is turned this way, so your rudder's turned to match or whatever. It doesn't care. It's going to go faster than heck, but you're going to start out with water pressure on this side so that when you turn, it just dives in beautifully, and it's going to want to when this guy is towed out slightly. So what are we gonna, do you want to, let's fix that right now. I'll show you how we do this. Let me think. Let me get my ducks in a row. Okay, now I know what to do. Yes. And that's not much. I've seen a lot of guys at the race course, what they'll do is they'll go grab a piece of tin or a piece of a razor blade and shove it under this edge here and tighten it down and go through their boat. I'm telling you what, that moves it a long ways. Oh, I want to see the angle first. My target, I think, if I remember right, was 16 degrees. I'm going to call this, since we're talking about terminology, I call this the tuck. How much is your turn fin tucked under the boat? Because I can't think of another good word, right? But we're tucking the bottom up underneath the boat with this angle. Oh, 0. Why couldn't you do that before? Now when you're checking this, you got to get this guy perpendicular to the bottom, right? Yeah, that'd be parallel, perpendicular. So somewhere around there. Oh, just over 15. 74.7, right? 74, 90 minus 74 would be 15. No. Yes. 90 minus 75 would be 15. So we're slightly over 15. We're at 15.3, 15.4. It's kind of bouncing around that neighborhood. So, all right, we got pretty close. Somewhere between 16 and 18. I think we might wind up increasing that, but 16 is a great starting point. I'm slightly under. We'll correct that right now at the same time as we're correcting our tow. And no, if you're thinking, what is the spec that I want for the tow out? I don't have a spec. I just want some. slight. Not so much that you stick a big giant shim underneath there. That would be dramatic. In a little 9-pound boat going 65 miles an hour, we don't need dramatic. You make really small changes. Here's what we're going to do. This stuff's the neighborhood of 2/1000 of an inch, if I remember right. I think what we need is probably 3 or 4 thousandths is all, and we're just going to shim it. I'm going to get this pretty close to this outside edge. That neighborhood there. Slightly more. Right about there. Fair enough. You know what's really nice about using radio box tape to do this? You can't see it. Why do I care? Because I don't want people to know I had to shim it. I want them to think that I set that transom on there perfect. Sponson transom. No, not the rear transom. Although that should be perfect too. I'm never going to find that end now. And I'm not even going to fast forward the video because I'm going to make you suffer while I try to do it. There we go. Just because you've been there. We're going to double it. That's why I'm pulling it off again here. Like I said, that's probably only 2 thousandths, and I wanted to go a good 1/16 of an inch change. So my mind tells me that 3 or 4 thousandths is what I need. Another cool thing you can do, but this can be visible, and plus shims move around, make you crazy. You go to adjust the angle and the shim moves, and now you've screwed up your toe too. But you can, especially if you have quite a long ways to go and you don't want to stack up a whole ton of tape, is cut an old feeler gauge. You know, here we go with my estate sales again. When you see an old ratty feeler gauge laying there, you can give them 50 cents for it, and you got yourself a bunch of shims. Okay, I'm not doing a great job, but we're going to go with that. You think that'll work? A bunch of you guys are going, that's not going to do anything. And you might be right, but I don't think so. I could agree with you. And then we'd both be wrong, right? Where'd it go? Got it. So we're going to try to go a little further than it was. Where was it? I'm going to say somewhere around there. Yeah, we're going pretty tight. I mean, wood moves, and this will actually change over time. You'll recheck this from time to time because wood moves. Let's see what we wound up with for our degrees. And 0.1. I don't care. I'm not going to try to reset it. I'm not going through that battle again. Oh, pretty much right back where we, well, almost 16. That's going to be slightly over 16, I think. Didn't shut that off, did I? No. Yeah, okay. 73.6, so I'm slightly over 16. That's going to be good. Let's check our toe. Can you see how that pulls up against that? Really nothing changes here. Ever so slight. 2 15/16. Look at that. Ever so slightly under 2 15/16. We've successfully towed it out just ever so slightly. I'd like to see a little tiny bit more. I might stick another piece of tape under that. But now we're towed out. just slightly. You want another reason? Because some of you were saying, no, that's stupid. The turn fin is cut an angle on one side only, not both sides. If yours is cut on both sides, well, if yours is cut on both sides, you're doing it wrong. I'm sorry. You want a big flat surface to hold the water in your turn, right? I don't want two different angles doing different things to the water while I'm trying to hold it. I want to cut clean. You want a single flat surface. So going back to the fact that it is a single cut and a flat surface, if this thing was going perfectly straight and I have that cut on one side but a flat here, where's my water pressure again? Out here on the outside. I don't want that. The tiniest bit of toe out is going to offset that. So I'm adding, basically trying to create this into a neutral here, okay? Where, if anything, because this is so large and toed out slightly, my pressure is here, where it should be. Okay, that's my theory on that. Now, specific eliminator stuff, the depth. You want to know how I set it? You want to know how I set it initially? Because I don't know what it is. 3 fingers. I have a 3-finger rule when I build a new boat. 3 fingers deep. Everybody asks me, well, how deep do you set it? I don't know, 3 fingers. You got fat fingers or skinny fingers? I don't know. So together, you and I are going to find out for the very first time the depth that I set my turn fins. I'm sorry, it's just the way I roll, man. Okay, that's 2. Oh, right there. 2 and 2 3/8. 2 and 3/8. Again, I'm using the ride surface. Okay, yeah, I know it's bowing a little bit, so I'm just trying to kind of judge that a little bit, but basically 2 and 3/8. And it holds beautifully. Now, your bigger, heavier boat, maybe it needs to be slightly deeper, but I think if you get much deeper, you're just wasting a whole bunch of metal in the water that doesn't need to be there, okay? So at least I know on the eliminator, this thing holds unbelievably well and corners like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I can turn this thing around a dime, 2 and 3/8. It might be more than we need. What about its position fore and aft? Boy, we talked about the balance and the position where the balance is on this boat. What if I moved this back and now I've centered the balance point on the middle here? Yes, but again, aerodynamically, the boat wants to fly the way it is, which is with the balance back here. So no, we do need to bring the weight forward. But let's talk about how this works. And to do that, it helps to exaggerate. Again, we're talking now about where to position it fore and aft on the boat. So we're going to super exaggerate and think about what would happen if we had the turn fin up here. Okay, because why not? Put a turn fin up here. Well, now the moment you initiate some rudder, what's it going to do? The whole boat is going to spin around this point. Okay, forward means it rotates, and it rotates right now. Okay, so what if we moved it back here? And you turn. The boat's just not going to care. I don't know what it's going to do. It ain't going to do much. It's just not going to care. It's going to keep going straight, and this thing's just going to kind of drag and shove through the water as it's trying slowly to turn, and it's not going to. Okay, so that tells us this. Further forward, boat turns quick, turns right now, can tend to hook if you go too far. Too far back, lazy in the turns. Doesn't kind of feel like it wants to hold, just kind of drags through the turn, and you can tell the boat just can't wait to stop turning so that it can get moving again. Okay, so there's a balance point of finding the just right spot. I'll tell you where it is on this one. I don't know, I set it up at 1 finger. Sorry, it's how I roll. I've never measured it. I don't know if this is really the right way. Okay, so use this surface, go back, it's roughly 3/4 inch. Maybe we go right on the ride pad. And if you go right against the ride pad like this, if you're building this exact boat, just slightly over 3/4 inch. Okay, so that's your spot. Now we know, now I know for the very first time, 3/4 of an inch back, and what was it, 2 3/8 deep from the ride height. Isn't that awesome? Now we all know what this does and why. The tuck, right? I said 16. That's just a number I pulled out of my hind end, to be honest with you, just from experimentation over the years. And that's that. You may have just saw that when I looked over here. I added this strut to the Stro this year, near the end of the season, and it totally changed the boat. And it changed my life because I realized how cool is that. All of a sudden, this thing is much more controllable and super duper fun to drive. It was fun before, but it was a little bit wild. The reason being, I had a lot of flex in it. I used this 1/8 inch 70-75, and you can see it's kind of long. And I drill a whole bunch of holes in it, which weakens it, which isn't really smart, but that's what I did. And so I felt like there was a little too much flex, added a strut. It's nothing but a piece of all thread, pokes all the way through. I reached in there from the inside, stuck a lock nut on the back side and glued it into place. And out here, I can push this in. You can see there's nothing holding it on the inboard. It just has a lock nut out here, just lightly touching it. And oh golly, we'll probably add one here. I'm using this, the turn fin and the bracket is available from Rattlesnake RC, and I'm using their stuff on this build, as you probably know if you've been following it. Their bracket is much thicker, a lot less flex. So I don't know that I really need to do that, but I might anyway, just for fun. And you know, I'd put it in this neighborhood here. I want it out of the water as a general rule, and then just poke up inside. We'll talk about that if I decide to do it. So now you know where to set this guy, where to add 8 ounces of friggin' weight, 4 and 4, to make this boat work. If you still got the decks off, put it in there now, or use more pour foam in the front. It'll give you more strength as well as more flotation, and add a little weight to the nose. That will help you. Should have done it. I regret it. Next boat will be different. Let's talk about the rudder. Do I have a whole lot of rudder theory to talk about? A little bit. I'll tell you one thing really cool you can do, and I don't know if I told you guys building the Eliminator how to deal with this. Did I talk to you about how to modify that? I have a full video about that, but let's talk about it. I have some sitting over here. Here we go. Okay, here's the thing. Now this is a big old Slycat gas rudder here, but this is the way the Speedmaster rudders come in its basic configuration, right? I know they're different in some ways. Here's my problem. See that? Why do I want that wall in the water stream? Where and how does that make any sense whatsoever? I don't want that in the water stream, so I make it go away like this right here. How do I do that? I just go over to my, go over to your bandsaw, go over to one of your 3 bandsaws that you bought from various estate sales. This way I can have a metal blade on one, you know, and a wood blade on another, and a fine blade and a coarse blade. Cut it. You're going to hack this thing. This one is really rough. I did a terrible job. But you're going to hack this thing right here. And then you're going to come down this way. Basically, what you get the idea there, I think. We're taking... Hello. Yeah, that's so cool. We're cutting this portion out. And just raising it up. Drill this hole bigger, because it now becomes your top hole. Mount it in there. Mark your location, and drill you a new small bottom hole for your shear hole. The whole thing goes up. Get rid of this wall. Okay? Easy. Right? Looks kind of like this when you're done. Did a terrible job. But that's the idea. You can do it. You can do it. It's not hard. Now, the depth. At the race course, I grabbed my Dremel tool and I cut this thing twice. I don't want to drag any more rudder in the water than it needs. And the boat got happier each time. I haven't measured it yet, but I can tell you where it landed. At a depth of 3 and, oh, let's see, it's over half. 3 5/8. Okay? For those of you building this. Don't be afraid to cut that. These things come really, really long. I've taken a lot off of this thing. And you don't, again, don't drag more metal through the water than you need to. This thing, this little bitty lightweight boat, will turn like a mad fool. Now what happens if you go too far and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's not holding well now? Well, Now you got a rudder for a different boat. Order another one and leave it a 1/4 inch longer. And that, you're never going to find the perfect spot unless you go too far, okay? Cut it. Don't be afraid. Cut it pretty doggone level. Speaking of level, that's the last thing we didn't talk about on the turn fin, and this is important. This bottom is cut as well, right? So what do you think happens if this bevel is forward? We've got weird pressure, probably lifting the boat, and the thing's going to go crazy. Make sure this trailing edge is back far enough that you are not creating water pressure on this surface. It should be, actually it should be obvious if I do this here. Let me do this. Now you don't want to be crazy dramatic, because then we create a lifting surface here, right? This is one of those catch-22 things. There's a balance point, and this is going to do that a little bit. You're right. But boy, by golly, if this part's forward, you're thrusting it from way down here. That's a bad deal. Yeah, you can kind of tell when I do that. See how this narrows off here? Because it's tilted slightly rearward. I may even bring it forward just a little bit, because that's quite a bit, but you get the idea. A little bit of extra material here. I'm going to hack that off now. I'll cut this off. I'll draw a Sharpie line right here so that at a glance I'll be able to tell if it's scooted at all. I might even put a shear pin in here. I've started doing that now. The same as you do on your rudder, okay? Shear pin on this one. Okay, tilted slightly back. We got the position, we got the tuck, we got the toe. I think we've set it. We got our depth here. Of course, we want it square with the hull. Should be, ought to be. If yours isn't, fix it, shim it, do whatever you got to do. Make that right. I think we are done under here. Okay, so we've got it. We know where to put this, and we know why. We know where to put this. We have some idea why. I don't like a whole lot of angle. We didn't really talk about that. I've talked about that a little bit before. I have one job for this guy, and that is to push the boat forward. I don't want it pushing the back of the boat up in the air. All I want to do is push forward. That's why I run this guy at 1 degree. Here I am at 1.2 or whatever that was. 1.5, if I get beyond that, I say there's something else wrong with the boat, and you need to fix it. Okay. I think we're done. I think if you build your eliminator and set it up the way I have just shown you, you're going to throw it on the pond. The thing's going to go 65 miles an hour right out of the box. You're going to look like such a hero amongst all your friends. Whoop. Little loose there. Job for Loctite. This will pop off. I'll tighten that up. Got a few things to fix, but look at this. I got 2 race boats, both of which can win. Oh, it's going to be a great year next year. I got a question for you guys. If you stuck with me this long, talk to me. What do we build next? What do we build next? Do we go back to gas? Do we need to build a gasser? I mean, I don't want to say I failed at the gasser. My gasser was insanely fast, but I fought it. I did fight it. And I finally sold it. I won the first race this year, and sold it immediately after the race. I feel like there's more to accomplish there. I might do that. But I'm also been looking at 10th scale. Not that I want to run a 10th scale electric, but I'm thinking about building one, and maybe we'll give it away. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment. Click like. You haven't done that in a long time, and I'd appreciate it if you would. It does help me. It makes YouTube show the video more often to other folks. I know a whole lot of guys that have been following along need this information to finish their boats. Click like. Share it with a friend. Tell your friends. Bring a friend. Let's all party together. Okay, I think we're done. I'm going to put this thing on the shelf. Actually, I'll put the weight in up here. And I'll put this thing on the shelf. Next year, I'll take it down, dust it off, throw it, boom, 65 mile an hour. Look out. Catch you later.